In today's episode, I'm going to tell you how to start your podcast the right way. What's up, fam? Welcome back to Leveling Up with CMH. Before we get started today, make sure you guys like this video, hit subscribe and the bell for notifications, and make sure, specifically with this episode, you check the description. I'm actually going to include one of my better performing blogs around podcasting and some do's and don'ts, and we've also included an awesome little resource that you guys can download there. So I highly recommend you continue your learning about podcasting after you're done here by grabbing that link included below. Okay, so for some context, I've been podcasting now for about 5 years. The first 4 I spent just doing audio, and then the last year I included video. So you'll see all of my ambiance going on here that's quite different than when I was recording from my closet in the first 6 months of my show, which is a true story. So let's go ahead and talk about some basic things you need to know. So the first thing is deciding what I just mentioned. Is this going to be an audio show, or is this going to be an audio and a video show? Obviously, there's a lot more complexities with doing a video podcast. However, there are a lot of benefits. We found that a lot of people resonate more with our show when they can see my face, when they can see the faces of my guest. And YouTube is also a great platform for search, right? Meaning people are looking for a specific topic. It's probably how you found this video yourself, because you're looking for videos about how to start a podcast. And so you found this. On the podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Pandora, you pretty much are picking up from people you know about already, or you're just going through whatever they recommend, right? You're not using it for a search tool. And so that's a big drawback to just doing audio content. However, I will say that nothing builds super fans quite like a podcast. So there's a lot of power to it. Just know there are some setbacks, if you will, to the lack of discoverability. Whatever your strategy is going to be involved with your podcast, I'd recommend you're at least on one search platform, whether that's YouTube, like we've already talked about, whether that's a blog where you actually write, you can even do the transcription of your podcast and then include a link or the embedded player from your podcast player, or you're going to use something like Pinterest. Those are the 3 most powerful search engines. Obviously, Google, not necessarily your blog, but Google is a fantastic way for people to discover your work and then to continue following your work with your podcast, joining your email list, all the wonderful things that you like to do to turn potential listeners into customers. That just gives you a little bit of context. Let's talk next about equipment. It's a big part of it. I'm going to get into the video part, but let's first talk about the audio part. I've done several videos of late, several episodes, talking about the different microphones that I recommend. So the first one that I'd probably talk to you about is what I'm using here, which is the Shure SM7B. This is a very advanced microphone and requires a lot of other pieces of equipment to make this microphone work the way that it was designed to work. This is actually the microphone that Michael Jackson used. It's the microphone that Joe Rogan uses, and many of the notable podcasters use this specific microphone. But it's probably too advanced for where you are in your podcasting journey. So I'd recommend you look into the Rode NT, which is the microphone that I used to have. You can also look into the Shure SM58. There's one other one I'd recommend, is the Audio Technica. Audio Technica has some great products. There's a range of products that they have. I'd probably suggest the 2100 is a really good microphone specifically for beginners. So look at those, look at the price point of those, but you can't go wrong with any 3 of those brands at any price point. They're very good devices. It may come down for you to USB versus XLR. So what that means, you're like, okay, what does that mean, Chris? I'm overwhelmed. Basically, this right here, this cable that's coming into this microphone, this is an XLR cable. So it's a 3-prong XLR cable. I can't plug directly into my computer with that, but I can plug directly in if it was a USB microphone. Right? So it's just the way that you're transmitting a signal. It's the cord that transmits your signal. XLR is higher quality. USB is a little bit more practical and convenient. So depending on where you are and depending on your current setup, it may make more sense for you to use USB and then just record with your laptop. You can record anywhere you want. If you have something like the SM58, it's a traditional looking microphone. You can just pack it away in a bag and you can record from wherever. You can record anywhere over the world, and maybe that makes more sense for you. You can just grab a little stand for $20. You're ready to rock and roll. The Shure products and the XLRs, you have to have what's called some kind of a recording device, whether that's one of the portable ones like a Zoom H4n or an H6n, or a Rodecaster Pro, which is my soundboard, which is what's recording the local file that you're listening to right now. So an added step, having to go from here into that before you go to your computer or your processing device. It's a little bit more of a nuanced, I guess hassle is probably the right word to use. It may not be where you are specifically for your journey. Now, let's talk about if you are going to do a video podcast. So what I'm recording with now, I have 2 Canon cameras, number 1 here and number 2 here. So each one of those I set up so I have 2 different shots, and they're mounted with different mounts to my actual desk, which is pretty cool. But what I'm able to do with these is I can go direct with an HDMI cord into my processing device. I have an Aurora R9. And when I'm doing a remote interview, what I can do, I can actually use it as a webcam on Zoom or any of the, like Skype is another option. Any of the ones that allow for video, right? So some don't. I mentioned Skype, they actually don't allow for video. Zencaster is another one. Squadcast is another one that allows you to record high quality audio remote. So obviously now a lot of people are just, you don't have the luxury of traveling all over the world to interview your guests, so you're probably going to be recording interviews remote, right? So again, I think in the order of what I'd recommend, I'd probably start with Squadcast. I actually know the founders very well. They've been on my show. They have a great product. As far as audio is concerned, it is probably top of the line. I mean, you really can't go wrong with that if you're going to do interviews. If you're doing solo, no problem, right? All you need is your microphone. If you're going to do video, you just put a camera in front of you. You don't have to worry about the HDMI aspect. You just put the camera in front. You don't even need a secondary shot. You could just use this shot right here. And honestly, for all intents and purposes, you'd probably be great. There's a lot of Canon cameras, which is what I'm using, that you can get for $500-$600. So maybe an added unnecessary step, but I will recommend this too. I don't know that you have to start with a DSLR, with a high grade camera like I have. I started my show when I started doing video. I just used my phone, right? And I just put it on a tripod, put that right in front of me, and I was good to go. You can also use something like a webcam. Brio is a webcam by Logitech. It's a 4K webcam. Really, really good quality. It's not going to look as good as what you're watching right now, but it will still be adequate and it will suffice. What I've come to find about podcasting is people are more concerned with this, meaning the audio, than they are concerned with the video. I think you have a little bit more leeway with video than you do with audio. People expect high quality audio experience. Okay, moving on here. So let's talk about where you're going to host your show. All right, so you've got all of your equipment. You're going to figure out whether you're doing interviews or solo shows, and you've already figured out whether you're going to do a audio or a video combination podcast. Let's talk about what you're going to do next, which is actually hosting your show. So when you host your podcast, think of it this way. It's the same thing if you have a WordPress website. You already be familiar with this concept. So you have a host, and then you have your builder for your website. Well, basically what that means is that the host is the engine, right? The engine is underneath the hood of the vehicle. It's what makes everything go. It's where all the action is happening, so to speak. The chassis is the part that you see, right? So you see the website, you kind of see all the bells and whistles and the fancy what have you, right? So that's a pretty good metaphor that I've always used. So you understand the difference between a host and your typical builder for a website. It's the same exact dynamic for a podcast. So you're going to have a host where you actually host and upload your content. And then what it does is actually it pushes out, it distributes that content out to various podcast players. Now, the one I recommend is called Libsyn, right? I'm going to include that below. You can check that out. It's L-I-B like boy, S-Y-N like Nancy. And Libsyn, the reason I prefer, and it's been recommended so highly, is because it actually distributes to more podcast players than any of the hosts that are out there that exist. It's a little bit more costly. There are some free options out there, but my understanding and my experience has been positive in that it gives you the most reach to other podcast players. I will tell you immediately, I think the Libsyn platform could use a little bit of a facelift. I think it's pretty antiquated, and that's after they've already given it an upgrade. I still think it's antiquated. It's going to feel like an early 2000s website. However, as far as all the bells and whistles are concerned and the functionality of what it provides, it is tremendous. So what you're going to do is you're going to sign up for a Libsyn account. What I'd recommend is you upload probably 5 to 10 episodes, including a trailer episode, and you're going to just upload your episodes and add your description, your titles for whatever you're going to call those episodes, and good. I would recommend, like I said, I'd recommend you start uploading your first 5 right out of the gates. The reason being is that if someone discovers your show and they see you have one episode, you're probably going to lose those people. If they find you and they like what they're listening to, you at least give them 4 other episodes they can binge. They can decide if they want to subscribe or if they want to pass on your specific show. All right, so that's going to push to most podcast players. Now, the next thing you need to know is that there are a few, like Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Pandora, that you're going to have to submit externally. I believe Stitcher's the same way. Very, very simple to do so. You're just going to Google how to submit my podcast to Apple Podcasts. Provide a link. You just submit a couple pieces of information. You're going to include your classic RSS feed. You'll be able to find that inside of Libsyn. If not, Libsyn support can help you find that. Once you submit that in the description for your show, everything's good to go. Your thumbnail will already be included with your Libsyn account. So you'll be able to see, it'll give you recommendations for what your thumbnail will look like. And that'll automatically push to all of the podcast players. Once you get approved, your show is good to go, and it will update automatically as soon as you upload any new episode. There are different tiers of pricing, so you get a certain amount of storage on Libsyn per month. So you'll get 30 megabytes or 50 megabytes or 60 megabytes, whatever you end up choosing, however much the frequency of your show is going to be involved. You'll be able to pick whatever is going to work for you. You're going to spend anywhere from $5 to $35 a month to host the show, which is a little bit costly when you consider the cost for hosting a website. However, it will archive every month, and you'll get an entirely new set of whatever storage allocation you bought. So 2 more quick things I want to talk to you about, and I'm going to let you guys go. Once you've submitted everything and you've applied for Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Pandora, one thing that I would recommend, though, is that a couple things that set you over the top. So we talked about good quality audio. You're going to get your awesome microphone. That's a big part of it. The next thing is having an amazing thumbnail. So I talked about submitting a thumbnail to Libsyn. Let's talk about how to create an amazing thumbnail. So I recommend Canva. It's like Canvas with no S, Canva. Canva is actually a free tool. There is a pro option. What I would do is I'd find a couple podcasts that you really like. They may actually even have some templates in there that you can select from. Choose the actual dimensions of the thumbnail that you need, which I think it's 500 by 500 is what they recommend. And then what you're going to do is take a high quality image of yourself if you're going to include yourself in the thumbnail, or choose high quality images. You can get something from Unsplash or from Pexels or something like that. Even Canva themselves have some great stock images you can include, as well as many, many fonts you can choose from. Now, you design it, you get to the point where you like it. What I do is I'd back out to 10% zoom, and that way you can see what it's actually going to look like, or at least a semblance of what it's going to look like on the podcast apps. The reason being is that you want to see what it's going to look like from afar when it's this big, because when people are scrolling, you want it to stand out. So use specific colors, use high resolution images, use text that's going to be legible. All those things are very, very important. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can go to someplace like Fiverr and pay somebody to design one for you. That's the next part of my advice. So I would actually even go to Fiverr while you're there and get somebody that does voiceover talent, right? So you can hire somebody for $15 to $30, and what they'll do is they'll do a nice little intro or an outro for your show. So when you hear somebody say, "You are listening to blah, blah, blah podcast," more than likely they hired that person from something like Fiverr, paid $15. They picked a little sound bite, which you can also get from Fiverr. You can get it from Epidemic Sound as well, where you're going to pay for the rights to use that music up to a certain point. You make sure that it's commercial grade. You actually are allowed to do that because some of them only allow you to use it for a certain period of time or for a certain amount of downloads or visibility or what have you, and then you've got to repay for that royalty fee or for that rights to their usage. So make sure you've done that. But I think all in all, with paying talent to have awesome thumbnail, awesome intro, and an awesome soundbite, you're maybe going to spend $65, $70. Microphone you can get out for about $100. You're going to use a laptop you already have. With your hosting, you're going to spend maybe $5 to $25 a month at most. You're probably looking at a $200 initial investment, and then recurring, you're looking at $5 to $25 a month. So it's very, very simple. Not too much to really be concerned with there. However, I will say this. When you submit and your show is brand new, something you could do that's really advisable, I would recommend getting as many subscribers, whether it's mom, dad, friends, whoever, even if you have to grab people's phones and subscribe to the show and leave a review, definitely do that. Reviews, subscribers, and downloads early. The first 8 weeks of a podcast are very, very important. It's how you get into new and noteworthy. It's what I did with my show. But you want to create as much buzz as you can early on to build as many viewers as you can. The last pro tip I'll give you guys is to use social media to your advantage. Use social media to drive people to your show to build your listenership. You can actually break down parts of your episode. You create one episode that's 45 minutes long. You can break down a lot of clips into micro content that you can repurpose on social media. So that way, if you talked about certain specific things, people know what you're talking about. You can tease that content and get people over to the platform to specifically listen to your content. So overall, wish you guys nothing but the best. Keep grinding, keep plugging away with it. If you have any questions, make sure to drop those in the comments below. Please don't forget about the description. In the description, I included that blog, one of my better blogs I think we've ever put together, if I do say so myself. And I think you're going to find it to be very, very helpful. I know we covered a lot here, but there's even more there in the blog in addition to our downloadable resource. So I recommend you do that. Make sure to like this video, subscribe if you enjoyed it, and you want more videos like this. Hit the bell for notifications so you find out when we have new videos that come out. We're talking about podcasting, you're building a business. Be in the know, find out when those come out, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.